I've got this Polo that I'm doing a timing belt on. It's a little bit different than the other ones. It's TDI. Had to buy a new timing belt kit to do it, and the pin goes in the back there. It's up here. I'll put it back in, but what I've done is change the belt. Had to remove this and loosen it enough to get to the pulleys. Now that's back on, the tension is done. I've rotated it twice. That's why the marker's slightly off now, down there. I can always set that again, but I'm gonna get this on TDC again. And what I found was when I put this pin that came in the kit, that's the make, that goes in the back of the engine just here, around the back. You can fit it in, it's a bit fiddly, but what I found was when I put that in, and turn the timing, that's all the way in. Not done it yet, I'll probably do it off camera. Put that all the way in and then turn the timing until this lines up. And then when the crank touches the end of that, when it's all the way in snug, and when the crank is touching that, right at that point, this just slots in, no bother at all on the back. The only thing I did find was this bit didn't fit. So what I did was, I thought, well, it's obviously running, no fault code's how it is. If I paint it, use the timing pins, but now I know if anything moves from how it started off. I know there's electronic timing pins that go on this end, and I've never known anybody that's got one, but some people swear by it, saying it's the only way to do it. So timing pins have never been a problem for timing belts, as long as they're good ones. Sometimes I have trouble. If you buy too cheap, they may not quite fit right, but we'll see how we get on with this one. Turned it round a couple of turns and then turned it round another couple of turns, so this is back. When that was, the bolt in the back is in just snug, not tight, and this touches it. When you turn the crank, it touches the bolt that you've put in at the back. Problem I had was, this looked totally fine, but it wasn't quite in alignment. This wouldn't go in. The big round bit would go in the hole, but it wouldn't go all the way in, which makes me think this side's right, because that was going in alignment to here, but this wouldn't go in, and I had to adjust that a little bit. If I take the bar out at the back and turn it until this stops now, turn the crank until it stops, those two move slightly out of alignment. So what I'm going to do, basically these two are okay with each other how it is now because the bar's in the back, but it's not quite. I mean, it's only very slightly. This yellow dot just moves ever so slightly. It's not even a half a tooth, it's more like quarter or something like that, but it isn't what it was. So I don't know, do I just say that maybe that's because the old belt had stretched, so it's going to be in a slightly different place, or do I just say that little bit may make a difference, so let's just do it as it was. What I do think though is, once this one's turned and stops against the tool that's in the back, this should slide in. It did before with the old belt, and it isn't with the new belt. So here's what I'm going to do. Leave that one in, loosen these, and then turn that until it stops, and then tighten them back up. And then try turning it round again and see how we get on. Right, I've just adjusted it all, put that bolt, the timing pin back in the back, and turn this a few times round. Well, I turned it a couple of times, then put the timing tool just before this came back to where it started. Then I turned it with a ratchet until it stopped on the timing pin. Now, these were loosened, not the cap, but the bolt behind it that looks like that. They were loosened, and it was a bit of a pain. Obviously everything moves out of alignment, but now this goes in. So I'm happy. That's in there. It's two lugs, it goes right through the back, and it goes in there. It goes in flush. So I'm going to take that off and turn it around twice more just to be sure. And then I know it's the same as it was. For whatever reason, this plastic bit of the tool didn't go in. I'm glad I painted it up, but I didn't just put a belt on by the paint alone. That was just in case something went wrong, and in this case it was. I could see that it wasn't quite the same as when it came in, and because the crank down there has a sensor, and the camshaft on this inlet side has a sensor, maybe one on the exhaust, but I can't see it, but this is the inlet, so that's the inlet camshaft, inlet sensor. I didn't want a cam crank correlation flagging up. I've had some cars that it takes a few miles when they're very slightly out before it comes on, and I have heard about these electronic timing tools. I don't even know where to buy them. However, I thought I'm going with a make that's this make here. It came with instructions as well, so I thought that's a make that I've used in the past and been happy with, so I'm just happy I painted it as well, otherwise we've had the problem. But like I say, I'm going to take this out once again, rotate it 2 turns, and make sure that goes back in. What I'm doing is taking that out, taking the pin out, turning the engine round till it's almost 2 turns, then putting the bolt back in, that's the pin at the bottom, finish turning it until that stops on the bolt. Once it's stopped on the bolt, that should go in without any problem. It didn't after doing the belt, but I checked it before doing the belt and it did go in fine doing it that way. So I really want it to be the same as it was. I wasn't sure, that little bit of a tooth out that it was, hardly anything, maybe a stretch belt, but even still, it wouldn't make any sense because that bolt, when that's in and when you turn it so it stops, this tool didn't go in. So however you look at it, it wasn't right. So I'll try it a couple of turns, put the pins in, and if it works I'll just check it's running and no fault codes. There's no fault codes. I was looking to see if there was any camo crank. I know that I've had them okay for a while. They usually show it pending, but this one's not showing anything. Just gotta wait for it to bleed the coolant, but it's all okay. That's it done. The CJZC engine, everything was fine apart from that plastic bit that went between the 2 pulleys, the 2 sprockets for the, the 2 pulleys on the timing belt end didn't fit. But as long as you make sure when you turn the crank so it locks up against the pin, that the one, the middle plate, as long as that fits properly, it seems to be okay. It did before I changed the belt. I made sure it did it after I changed the belt. There's no fault codes, no camo crank correlation fault codes. I'm just bleeding it. Already wrote the receipt. Just waiting for it to bleed up. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody. Thanks for watching.